Hi, I'm Sue McCleary, aka Passion Flower Sue, and I'm excited to be part of the 2023 Mayesh Design Star video series. This year, Mayesh has chosen to explore the topic of sustainable floristry and how we as florists can reduce our environmental impact and contribute to positive change. We are an industry that works so closely with nature, we make art out of nature. This simple truth is surprisingly easy to become detached from in the hustle of our busy lives. As florists, it's our responsibility to openly explore these issues and examine how our actions affect the natural world. Sustainable floristry is certainly not a new concept, but over the last 10 years or so, we've seen an awareness and interest in the topic increase. As the larger culture began to question established systems and the impact our everyday actions have on the earth and its people, so did florists. Of course, many florists have had a sustainably minded approach from their first day working with flowers, but many of us, myself included, were taught floristry in a more conventional way. In my early days as a florist, I accepted the methods that were shown to me. But as I began to explore the culture of floristry, I soon realized there's a long, rich, global tradition of floristry to explore. There are methods and mechanics that we can use that are gentle to the planet. There are ways to support responsible floriculture, and there are so many ways to reduce the waste that we create. Sustainability is a complex topic. Generally speaking, it has three pillars: economic, environmental, and social. In floristry, we have a lot to examine. The ethics behind our work include the health and welfare of the people that grow and process our flowers, the environmental impact of floriculture, including the chemicals that are used in production, the carbon footprint that's created as our flowers travel the globe to reach us, and the waste our work leaves behind. It's complex and layered. So over the last 7 years or so, as I've taught and written about floristry, I've become very interested in how I can best participate in positive change. I followed my unique curiosity and found myself attracted to testing methods and mechanics. I began to test ways to work as a florist in a more nature-focused way. I know that as a teacher and writer, I'm operating from a privileged place. I don't execute events every week, and I don't feel the same hustle that friends feel who have busy retail shops or event studios. But because of this, because I'm outside the hustle, I can test and present findings that will help working florists. This is the aspect of sustainability that I feel I can contribute to. So it's my hope to improve upon conventional floristry methods so I can help florists create artful, relevant, profitable work that's also sustainable. To tighten my focus, I created a little criteria mantra for myself to stay on track: reusable or compostable. I aim to focus on mechanics and materials that fit into one or both of those categories. So in my studio, I do use wires and tape, and I do use floral glue, but for the activities that have the most potential for a large amount of waste, such as centerpiece work and large-scale installation work, I focus on reusable or compostable components. With these two criteria as my focus, I've gathered lots of little ideas over the years that I would like to share with you. These are some of the helpful props, methods, and techniques that have allowed me to operate my studio in a more environmentally responsible and profitable way. So welcome to my studio. I'll do a little show and tell, and then I'll show you how to make an impressive floral pillar. So welcome to my studio. I just want to walk you through a few of my go-to sustainable floristry mechanics. So my favorites. I love flower frogs, but I tend to use the smaller ones in event work mostly. I use them in little dishes like this for satellite pieces, floral pieces that won't go home at the end of the event because I don't like to part with my little flower frogs. So I use them in little dishes like this. The larger ones I tend to use for myself at home. But these really big guys, you must give these a try. These are hairpin frogs from Floral Genius. You can add the flowers at a horizontal angle and they can really cascade down. They're amazing for statement pieces, maybe for a bar or a place card table, something like that, because you don't want to part with these as well. But these can hold a lot of flowers and hold them at any angle that you would like. To expand on the idea, I shared a design that I collaborated on with a local welder called a mega frog. My dream frog, this really large frog that can hold a lot of heavy materials. This one isn't in production with me, but Floral Fabrications in the UK, a welder, is producing these for the floral industry, so I highly recommend you check this out. This could make a beautiful elevated design, a really abundant entryway design, anything large that you can imagine. This guy you would not want to part with either, but this would make a beautiful sustainable mechanic for event work. And lastly, these weighted pin cups. I use these for event work as well. What I love these for especially is tucking into garlands. So picture you have a nice green garland on a long dining table. You can kind of tuck these in and hide them underneath the greenery and then design fresh flowers into them. They're weighted so they won't blow over for an outdoor event. So these are a must. Okay, moving on to water tubes. So I'm not a fan of using a million water tubes in an installation. I like to lean on reliable materials that don't need a water source for the length of an event. However, when I do use water tubes, I use the 4-inch from Syndicate Sales. This is a good amount of water. Many flowers can last 72 hours with this amount of water. I also save my orchid tubes whenever I receive cut orchids. They're usually tubed with these large ones, and I just wash them and save them for future use. And lastly, when I have to add a lot of delicate flowers into an installation or into a chicken wire garland, for instance, I like these 5-inch water tubes. I get these at Mayesh, and these hold a lot of water. So you can definitely add flowers to these the day ahead, and you'll have enough water to last the length of the event. I have one more little guy here. This isn't a water tube, but this is a little cup that I received hydrangea in years ago, and I've been reusing these little guys again and again. So this can get tucked into an installation, into a tabletop garland. It's just an example of something that you can wash and reuse and have for a future design issue that you have. On to armatures and vase mechanics. When I was first learning as a florist, I had a mentor who taught me how to make a curly willow armature, just very simple, and I've been using it again and again. So this is a really simple idea. You just take a bunch of curly willow tips in your hand and you bring the tips back into your palm, making kind of loops. Very simple. Doesn't have to be beautiful, it's the function you're after. I kind of twist them this way and that so that they form kind of a light bulb shape. And then using a rubber band, I bind the armature. Just going to cut the stem short and secure the rubber band. And then I have an armature that I can design a bouquet into. I can pop this in a vase. I can make it very small and dainty for a small handheld bouquet. I can make it large for a large vase. So just a very simple, useful, natural armature. Expanding on that, everybody has seen these before, these rattan balls. They come in all shapes and sizes. You can use them as a vase mechanic. It is reusable, but I think it's best for event work because you don't want these submerged in water for more than a few days. You have to wash and sanitize between each use. They can be perched on top of the water line, just kind of set onto the vase, and you can design through them. Just another option for these balls as a vase mechanic. And for the little one, I like to make floral pomanders with these. So I'll make a loop of ribbon and I'll force it through the ball with a wooden skewer, and I'll tie at the end to create streamers. The loop becomes a handle on top, and then I can just use glue to attach flowers to the pomander. I love these balls, but chicken wire is my go-to for a reusable vase mechanic. So I tend to go for vases that are opaque so I can hide my chicken wire. And I like ones with a little bit of depth so that as the vases travel to the party, the water inside isn't sloshing too much. It's contained within the vase. So what I like to do is measure kind of twice the width of the opening of the vase. I just kind of roll it in on itself, creating a loose orb that has a number of swirls of chicken wire within it so that when I add a stem to the vase, it's catching on more than one layer of the chicken wire. So the stem goes in, it finds a little path through the chicken wire, and it's caught a number of times on each layer of chicken wire within that orb. After the event, the flowers are removed and composted, and the chicken wire ball is just washed with soap and water and stored for the next use. And I know that there are times when you want to give the flowers away at the end of the event and you don't want to give away your vessels. So you can use palm, restaurant grade palm bowls and dishes to do this. So you can use a natural vase mechanic like the curly willow, make a loose kind of mass of it and tie it down with twine, and then this insert gets tucked into your vase and disappears. At the end of the night, this container with the fresh flowers goes home with your guests and you collect your rental vases. Okay, so next, hanging flowers, attaching flowers and fruits and vegetables into arrangements. I like to use wooden skewers and toothpicks to do this. Just a simple toothpick can securely hold a stem and create little arms that you can hang into a chicken wire installation, a natural armature installation. The wood gets really locked in place because it swells against the moisture of the stem. I also use these guys to fortify kind of juicy or wilt-prone hollowed stem flowers. So things like hyacinth, I'll insert up the stem and then use the hyacinth in installations without a water source. So a really useful tool. Okay, next, my new best friend, my lay needle and my hemp thread. So I use this to string all sorts of little berries and pods and florets. Things like hyacinth and delphinium and things like hypericum can become really beautiful, delicate garlands that you can add to bouquet work, centerpiece work, and installations. Speaking of installations, my favorite mechanic for constructing and for hanging large-scale installations is the Oasis rustic wire. So this is a really heavy gauge wire that's very, very strong, and it's already wrapped in a natural fiber, so it kind of disappears in a composition, and it's very reusable. So I will use this to hang things, to attach things to structures, and then at the end of the event, it can be collected and used again. Twine is another one to bind bouquets underneath a ribbon wrap, for instance, or for tying mechanics into vessels, or for hanging things that maybe aren't that heavy, just natural plain twine from the hardware store. And this one is a really exciting one. This is kind of my take on a casket spray. So this is infamously a difficult design to do completely sustainably. And this is not a compostable material, but this is a better choice material in my opinion. This is agar-wool. I used 2 blocks and I've tied it to a palm tray with twine. But the exciting part is I figured out a way to make it so that the palm tray doesn't slide on the casket. I just take my hot glue gun and make little feet on the bottom of the palm tray, 4 little dots of glue that make sure that this won't shift on top of the casket. For elevated arrangements for event work, it's difficult to think of an easy way to make really large, impressive arrangements without, a tray and traditional flower foam. This is one of my favorites, reusable, really a pleasure to use and makes fast work of large arrangements. This is the Holly Chapel pillow from Syndicate Sales. So you design your big, beautiful, expressive, elevated arrangement into this, and then to transport it to the event, you just remove the pillow with the flowers attached and you transfer them in low buckets of water. I like to tuck mine into milk crates to keep them secure. And then the vases travel separately to the event. The only kind of fussy work is filling this up with water at the event and then replacing the flowers on top. But this is really a joy to use. This is one of my very favorite innovations. And another recent innovation that I've been testing, not an innovation, but a recent find, tumbleweeds. Now these are an incredibly useful, perfectly sized natural material that I've been having a ton of fun testing. So you can design a very large, impressive piece through the network of stems of the tumbleweed, and it keeps things really locked in place. And again, after you're done designing, you would remove it, place it into a bucket to travel to the event, and then place it on top of your tall stands at the venue. And lastly, this one is just perfect for my very favorite large statement piece vase. It just tucks right inside like chicken wire. And I've tested this guy and it's usable again and again. I just kind of wash it with hot water, spray it down, and let it dry between uses. So I hope you liked these ideas. I hope that they solved some design issues for you. Testing mechanics and reporting my findings is my very favorite thing to do. So if you have any design problems that you just can't get around, feel free to DM me on Instagram. I'd love to chat with you. Over the years, I've worked with a local welder and had a number of structures made. At first, this felt like something that was out of reach, too expensive to be done, but it turns out that welded structures can be quite affordable. So I've had arch structures welded, I've had huppas welded, I've had floral pillars like this one welded, and I'm able to rent them over and over and over and use them for years. So they really do make a lot of financial sense. Also, you can rent them to other studios. You can rent them to the public. So I encourage you to look into getting a few pieces made. They really will open up the possibilities for your studio. So this one here is really fun. This floral pillar structure can be used on its own, in a pair to frame a couple. You can also put a crossbar on top and make it into an arch. So it's really a versatile, really sturdy, reliable piece to use in your studio. To use it, I just looked for receptacles that are reusable, that fit into the frame I had made. And within each water receptacle, I just have a ball of chicken wire that I can use again and again. And I've taped it down with waterproof tape so it's nice and secure. It simply pops into the little frame there, and then I can design my flowers in. To save time, I can design the water receptacles ahead of time and pack them into boxes and transport them to the venue that way, or I can design on site. Either way, this is a really fun, artful piece to make. Let's get started with the first layer, the hanging amaranthus. And now I'll add this beautiful Ami. All right, now I'll add the clematis with its wonderful foliage. It'll cover a lot of space. Next, I'll add the narcissus. They have a really fleshy, kind of delicate stem, so I want to get them in early so that there's room for them in the chicken wire. Now I'll add the lilac. This will help me kind of disguise the buckets and add fullness to the floral pillar. Now to add a little bit of body and reinforce the line of the floral pillar, I'll add some of these bells of Ireland. And the final floral layer, the calla lilies, and these are such a resilient, long-lasting flower. They don't necessarily need a water source. I'm just going to take a wooden skewer and kind of stake them in their stems and then insert the wooden stake into the vessels to keep them in place. I hope you enjoyed this little inside look into my studio. The mechanics that I reach for every day have allowed me to create artful, relevant work that's still profitable and sustainable. Also, I hope that this floral pillar design encourages you to seek out a welder in your neck of the woods. Investing in a few pieces that can be used over and over is really a very responsible financial choice, and it allows you to create really over-the-top, amazing, sustainable, large-scale floral installations. Thank you so much to Mayesh for all the wonderful flowers that you provide to us every day and for inviting me to share my take on sustainable floristry.